So we all like to take breaks from our busy lives, enjoying things such as snapping people's necks or banging our heads to the best metal we can possibly muster up. Well, another thing Warhorse likes to do when he's taking a break is listen to the Hot Tag Hooligans Wrestling Podcast Show with Tom and Aaron. And if Warhorse has learned anything over the past few months, it's that the Hot Tag Hooligans Wrestling Podcast Show rules ass!
Lord help me, I just need some motivation. And I got tired of all these rumors and they hate. I feel my best when I'm worry-free. Mama, don't you worry, ain't nobody hurting me. Yeah, Lord help me, I just need some motivation.
Welcome, everybody, to the Hot Tag Hooligans Wrestling Podcast Show. I'm Aaron. That's Tom. Tonight, our special guest, you may have seen him in Ring of Honor recently. You may have seen him for MCW or ECWA. It's the one and only Eric Martin. How's it going?
Hey, everybody. How you doing? Yeah, Eric Martin. That's me. That's it.
Let's talk about pro wrestling to start it off. Right now, we're seeing a great influx again in professional wrestling, especially with the crowds coming back. Ring of Honor recently had a crowd, Impact Wrestling over the weekend as well, and of course WWE back to mainstream again. Talk to me a little bit about the struggle that you kind of went through with the no crowd situation and perhaps not being able to wrestle during COVID, and now the rejuvenation of back with the crowd.
So, like, the no crowd thing never really bothered me. I mean, granted, I love an audience and I love when we have that, but the way I wrestle very like focused on my opponent, but I also know how important it is to get an audience emotionally invested in a match. And it's a different beast. Like when you got to wrestle nobody, like with nobody watching versus having a crowd, because it's honestly, it can be a little bit easier, but also like you got to perform at a different like level when you have an audience. But most of the time, I'm used to not getting a reaction anyway, so like it's totally cool with me. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, no, definitely having a crowd, an audience, it gives a different element to whatever you're trying to like convey in a wrestling match. Does that make sense?
Right.
Yeah.
I think, there was a lot of times, like even the WWE's bigger pay-per-views that they had during the COVID period, I was thinking to myself, this match would be a fantastic match if it just had that crowd element to it. Like the work was phenomenal, but just having that extra crowd involvement into the match makes matches a little bit more entertaining sometimes.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the back and forth between the crowd, like, adds to, like everything you do. I listen to, like, some of the biggest pops that happen, and I get, like, chills. Like, something happens, and the crowd reaction is, like, adds to how much it resonates with the people at home, I guess. If they're watching it, it's like, oh wow, like this is a moment. You know what I mean? I don't know.
I'm gonna put you on the spot real quick. What's one of the biggest pops you can remember hearing?
Ever?
Yeah.
So 2008, I was at the Royal Rumble when John Cena came back. That's the largest pop I've ever heard in my entire life. That's it. I mean, John Cena is my favorite wrestler, but like of all time. But that moment there was like, it sent like everything. I'll watch a clip of it today and I'm like, you know what I mean? Like that's probably one of the biggest reactions I've ever heard. And that gave me like, I still have an emotional response to it today. I don't know. But I also, when Ring of Honor came back this past at Best in the World, when they had a crowd, Brian Johnson came out and cut a promo. I felt, you know what I mean? Like it's when it connects, not just with you. Like if it gives you chills, I feel like that connects with a lot of people. I don't know.
So that being said, do you prepare differently for a crowd in your matches than if there's not a crowd?
Personally, me, not really. I know what I'm trying to do every time I go out there. Because I kind of, the way I came up, I wrestled on like CZW Dojo Wars, and I've done a lot of things with smaller crowds, and I know that like I'm trying to, my audience is more of an online audience, and I want them to be like, if whatever story I'm trying to tell, I want that online audience to understand that. And if I can tell it in a way that the live crowd is going to tell, is just going to add more to what I'm trying to tell to a camera. That makes sense.
Now, one promotion that you've done a lot of work for is a promotion that I think does not get a lot of credit, and that's ECWA. And if you're an independent wrestling fan, then you've got to know what ECWA is because of the Super 8 tournament and how prestigious that tournament is. And you are someone who has actually been able to compete in that tournament. So tell me a little bit about that experience and as far as ECWA.
So I started in ECWA. We had a different owner at the time. That's where I had my first like series of matches. I was Kid USA. That's where I started, and it has such a rich history, and the Super 8 tournament even more so. It was a huge goal of mine, and I was happy to participate in it, but like I want to do more. I would love to compete in it again and see what I can do there, but ECWA is a fantastic company. I love wrestling there. I love the people that run it now. John Finnegan, Michael Keener, Jim Molyneux. Those are some of the best referees that I know, and they're all involved in that company. And I love ECWA. That's where I started, and it will always hold a special place like in my heart. And I was so happy when I was able to come back and actually like they let me go out there and wrestle and do professional wrestling the way they saw it and the way I saw it.
Yeah, I mean, for myself, my very first inclination of independent wrestling was ECWA, and I used to trade tapes a lot to get the Super 8 tournaments with Low Key and Chris Sabin and those type of guys coming through. Scoot Andrews is somebody that a lot of people don't know about, but I would fall in love with those talents and hopes that they would make it one day. When TNA started up, they did pull a lot of those guys and start bringing them crossover as well. But when you look at the landscape of pro wrestling right now, do you still feel like independent wrestling is not getting the publicity that it rightfully deserves?
I feel like it is, especially with the vitalization of or the utilization, of IWTV and these streaming services like Fight TV. Look at GCW. GCW is huge. They're a very independent company. Like, they don't use the same guys all the time. They have their core talent, but they're constantly highlighting guys. And I mean, I think independent wrestling is thriving right now. And there's so many platforms where there's so many guys that are so good and that have major followings. Look at Danhausen, right? Danhausen was an independent wrestler, and now he's signed to Ring of Honor, but he's also that dude's a star, you know what I mean? But you got guys like Lee Moriarty and Daniel Garcia. Look at Wheeler Yuta, he's killing it, man. Yuta's the man. I think independent wrestling is thriving, and I think there's a lot of eyes on it because it's just you can find those next big stars there. I want to wrestle more in the indies. You know what I mean? It don't happen for me, I guess. I don't know.
You know, I think there is a disconnect between wrestling fans sometimes, because you have your fans that watch WWE and AEW that have no idea what's going on in independent wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the more these streaming platforms pick these things up and get it available, people watching on YouTube, I think it's getting bigger and bigger. But I don't think it's as big as it can get yet. And it's exciting to see as it goes.
Right. And so we're talking about the crowds, right? Like, when a independent star, a star debuts for one of these major companies, it gets a very big reaction from the core fan base. And then there's people call them casuals. They'll bite on because they're like, oh, everybody else is reacting. I gotta react. And then, you give it time, let them decide whether or not like they like this person. But that initial response is huge. You know what I mean? You see it all the time. Like when guys debut for like an NXT or an AEW Dark, or they like even the NXT guys being brought up to the main roster, or guys start wrestling for AEW, like they get these crazy reactions. And you saw, if you were watching Best in the World, like Chelsea Green got a major reaction. I mean, I know she's wrestled for Impact, but like, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like people recognize who she was, and the crowd like blew up for her. And I got chills listening to that. Like, that reaction was awesome. And Chelsea's somebody I knew from ECWA back in the day, for bringing it full circle. You know what I mean? Like, so that was super cool to see.
Right now, though, it's really hard to keep up because you have talent working for Ring of Honor. They're also working for Impact Wrestling, and then they're also working for AEW, and then they're wrestling for NWA. And, and it's kind of like, I feel like everyone's trying to gel together right now to take out the WWE in some form.
I don't know if it's that. I think it's people are they just want to work. They just want to wrestle, and they want to wrestle against the best people, and they don't want to be. I don't know about anybody's situation, but I fully understand saying, hey, I want to keep my options open, and I really just want to wrestle the absolute best. I want to be able to tell the stories that are out there and that are able to be told, and I just want to wrestle the best. You know what I mean? Like, I 100% understand that being an independent oddity where it's like you never know where someone's going to pop up.
Yeah, I get that. But on the same, you mentioned Wheeler Yuta, and he just wrestled on AEW. But I always feel like with AEW, a lot of that talent that they bring in for Dark and things like that, it's just to get their other people over. And I've seen a lot of talent losing a minute, losing 2 minutes, where on the independents, they're some of the best actually wrestlers I've ever seen in my life. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword. What do you feel about that?
I mean, we're conveying a sport here, right? So it's like if somebody from Bellator were to come into like UFC and get whooped in a minute, right? Like, hey, like look at Eddie Alvarez, right? The Underground King, Philly guy. I love it. I'm a Philly guy as well. When he came to UFC, he got whooped up on. Like, he got humbled quick. And it's like, you got to earn your spot. So it's like, it's kind of a test. It's like, you come in with this hot name, all right, you got that initial viewership. Can you sustain it? Did you do something that was memorable? Or are you big enough where you can maintain people coming to keep on watching? You know what I mean? That's something I hope to aspire to one day, like where, like whatever level I reach, wherever I reach out to, it's like, how many people can I maintain to keep watching based on who I am? Not who I wrestled or the opportunity I got. Or so like, can I sustain that viewership because they genuinely want to see what I can do. I think that's kind of where that falls into. It's a test. Everything's a test. Nothing is straightforward in professional wrestling, if I'm being completely honest.
So do you consider yourself someone who is completely open to working anywhere and everywhere, or are you kind of, selective?
Yeah. No, I'm not selective at all. I really genuinely want to wrestle everywhere. I want to wrestle everyone. And until I find my, because I say this all the time, like, I don't necessarily like know who I am as a wrestler yet. Like, I'm still finding that out. Like, we are all on this journey. Like, I started out, I was Kid USA, and then I was Classic Eric Martin, which is like a cool moniker, but like, what makes me a classic? Like, I'm very, like, I don't know. When I went to the Ring of Honor dojo, I became like a young boy. Like, I'm just Eric Martin, and that's it. Like, I love that. I love stripping it down bare bones and seeing that journey, that growth. But we got to see, I'm still figuring out who I am as a wrestler, if that makes sense. Like, I feel like there's plenty of opportunity to show like what I can do, who I am, my personality across all different forms of wrestling.
Yeah, I mean, that makes totally sense. And then you've got certain talents that can continuously reinvent themselves, like a Chris Jericho. Someone that really comes to mind to me is PCO.
Oh.
I don't think he found himself until like the last 5 years. I mean, to be honest, and look at his career that he had long before that. But now he has been able to maintain this identity, and people are now aware of him.
Yeah, like, the internet fell in love with him. He became Ring of Honor World Champion. Then he eliminated me from a Battle Royal. He's got a lot of highlights, man. Especially that last one. That's hard to do. Big Battle Royal. Yeah. But PCO is absolutely the man. And as far as that, like, that's something I've always admired about different wrestlers. Like, my favorite wrestler of all time, I know I said John Cena. John Cena is one of my favorites. Chris Jericho is my all-time favorite wrestler. He's why I became a wrestler. I read Chris Jericho, A Lion's Tale, Around the World in Spandex. That was what made me become a professional wrestler. I went and studied communications in college because of that book. But like, that guy has reinvented himself 2 million times over. Like, even the same character, like, would always have different nuances depending on whatever he was doing, whoever he was wrestling, whatever feud he was in. That's something that is unique. And, when you're such a personality as a person, that shines through, if that makes sense. Like, for me, I'm a very dry person. Like, that's it. Like, I don't know. I'm very sarcastic, blah, blah, blah. But like, when I'm dealing with somebody who I don't necessarily particularly like, I'm a bit of an a-hole. You know what I mean? Like, and that's going to shine through. Or if somebody is trying to be uppity, like too uppity and like, oh, I'm better than you, I'm going to probably layer that on a little bit. Like, okay, you know what I mean? Like, I would probably fit whatever role I'm in at that moment, because how I'd reacted that person and or character.
So do you actively think about like your character evolving as you go, and think that there's points in your career where you're like, ooh, I need to tweak something, I need to do this? Or do you kind of just try to let your natural character flow through?
So me, I have a hard time with being an over the top character, if that makes sense. Like, you can't spell generic without Eric. And I don't know. Like, I feel like there's parts of me that have, like, if I was feuding with like somebody, I have ideas for that, how I would act. Or like right now, I'm a dojo boy. I'm super happy to but I want to get away from happy to be here, Eric Martin. Like, if that makes sense. Like, people give me random nicknames all the time. You know, like, it's just how I act in that situation how my personality reacts. Just like if you were having a bad day at the DMV, you're probably going to act, you know what I mean, differently that day. Like, sorry, I'm having a bad day. But if I'm in a feud with somebody who just keeps getting on my nerves, I'm going to act differently towards that person. You know what I'm saying? I feel like I'm a very reactionary person. And
I like what you said just then, because one of my biggest pet peeves in pro wrestling is if someone screwed out the title and then the next night they're out there jumping around and as happy as could be. No, you should be very upset. You should be pissed off that someone has just screwed you out of a championship. And too many times now, pro wrestling and the major companies just, it's just on the back burner. Like, no one cared that they lost.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if that happened to me. I mean, it'd honestly probably be a travesty because I would have to be screwed. But, I would probably, if something like that were to happen to me, I would be very like, oh man, this happened, blah, blah, blah. I would come up with something smart to say and then turn it on. I would be hot about it. You know what I mean? Like, it's not something you brush under the rug. Like, if I know I get hot about stuff in my real life, like when I work at a job where I'm the only person doing the extra work that I shouldn't have to do because the other 4 employees don't want to do the extra stuff to make sure everything's handled. And I'll talk to them about it and they'll be like, yeah, but won't do it. You know what I mean? Like, it's like professional wrestling is work, right? So it's like, you should get frustrated when you're screwed out of that promotion or whatever. Like, so say the promotion is winning the Intercontinental Championship and I got screwed over. It's like, all right, yeah, you know what? I am going to be a little hot about that because I've worked really hard to earn this, and then whatever happened.
Now, you mentioned John Cena and Chris Jericho. Who is your Mount Rushmore of professional wrestlers?
Oh, Mount Rushmore of professional wrestlers?
Uh-huh.
Like, all-time greats?
Yep.
Oh, well, Stone Cold, biggest draw ever. In the amount of time he was there. I guess you got to go Hogan because, I mean, he was on top for a very long time. Probably Undertaker, greatest character of all time. Greatest, like, longest running character. And even in his later years had the, like, most success in the championship reigns. And then probably Ric Flair. I don't know if that's like a very like.
Oh, that's fine. I always like to hear people's opinions on that. Actually, Tom and I were both asked as a podcast to give our top 10 who we think top 10 greatest wrestlers of all time, and we both gave and both of us said Austin was number 1 for us. Our number 2, 3, and 4 kind of were a little out of the way. You know, I look at Mount Rushmore a little bit different than who I think is great, because great necessarily doesn't mean that they drew money or, you know, there's different aspects of things. Like, I think Rey Mysterio is an all-time great, not like top 4 or 5, but he's an all-time great because he revolutionized the high-flying aspect of it. So
there's so much to unpack there, and my opinion changes week to week. I could give you the Mount Rushmore today, and 2 months from now, there may be 1 or 2 people that I changed out in there. I know Ric Flair didn't used to be in mine, and he is now, and that's happened in the last, 5 years. So,
did you watch his what's it called? Whatever Stone Cold's podcast is that he was on.
Yes.
Like, whatever it is. And he went there and said, we throw the term GOAT around entirely too much. I hate it when we do it. Like, they'd be like, oh, he's the GOAT, like, blah, blah, blah. Cool it a little bit. Like, greatest is a term that is reserved for greatness. Like, when people say LeBron James is a GOAT or Michael Jordan is a GOAT, Michael Phelps is a GOAT, Tom Brady, these athletes, like, GOAT is a major term, especially for professional wrestling. Like, when you talk about, so for example, on that podcast, they mentioned Bobby Eaton and Stone Cold is like, oh, he's a GOAT. And Flair kind of cooled him a little bit on it. And he was like, listen, Bobby Eaton is really good. Greatest? You know? And you got to, you know, you could be great at a certain aspect of something, but overall greatness, I think, for professional wrestling has to do with money drawn and talent, but also, you know, how well you were on the microphone and how much of a draw you truly were. Because at the end of the day, in this business, it's all about money and miles. And those four, I mean, you know, they made a lot of money.
Right. Yeah, I mean,
But,
greatest draw of all time, is, like you're talking about. So if you want to say the GOAT of drawing, it's probably Austin. You want to say the greatest the GOAT of half line, you could say Mysterio. The GOAT of characters, right. Undertaker.
Yeah.
The GOAT of reinventing himself is Chris Jericho. You know, there's different levels of the GOAT. Yeah, definitely.
Like, if for my personal top 10 wrestlers of all time, I mean, honestly, the most effective are the ones that don't have to do anything when you really look at it. But I mean, like, I love Punk, I love Guerrero, I love Rey Mysterio is amazing. I mean, obviously, I'm not out there doing a lot of what he does. Mr. Perfect for me, and this one's going to be completely off the wall. He's one of my favorites. I don't think he's in the discussion of technically sound best of all time, but a guy like Don Morocco, where just his presence was so, like, I love Don Morocco. I watch a lot of his stuff, but, like, he would just crack a dude, and that was it. Like, you know what I mean? He would wait. He would. If I saw Don Morocco whooping somebody's ass on the street, I would believe it. You know what I mean? Like, and when I see him doing it in the ring, sorry for cursing, I believe when he's putting the boots to somebody and beating up on somebody. And I really, but, like, technically, all those other guys that I mentioned are up there, like Bryan Danielson or Daniel Bryan, like that, like, they're amazing technical wrestlers that you got to watch and really study. But, like, presence is a major thing for me because that's something I really need to work on. I used to get it all the time. They'd be like, oh my God, you're so much taller than I expected. And I guess I'm like, well, I'm 6'3", 230 pounds. I mean, that's pretty commanding presence, I guess. Like, when you meet me, you know, you're caught off guard. Now we got to wrestle, you know? Oh, I thought you were smaller. Well, I'm not. So, I don't know.
I mean, you know, the one I get a lot of grief about is Lesnar, because I feel like in any era of professional wrestling history, he's a draw.
Yeah.
He's 100% believable in any genre of professional wrestling, and that is so rare.
Yeah, he's awesome.
When he wrestles.
Growing up, like, I mean, honestly, who is more legit than that dude? Like, who's going to come in? I mean, you can have an MMA background. Are you going to come in and beat his ass because he's a former UFC world champion, bro? Like, he's 260, 70 pounds. He's going to double leg you and take you down and beat your face in. Oh, he doesn't want to wrestle anymore? Oh, I'll just go back to UFC. And, like, people hate him for that. Like, Brock Lesnar is amazing.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, he might be able to beat me one day. Who knows? I don't know.
Maybe he'll throw you out of the Royal Rumble.
I don't know. My twin Drew McIntyre did it, so yeah, I'm Mini McIntyre. That's what they call me.
Mini McIntyre.
Yeah, I get that one entirely too much. I just want to put an end to it now. You know,
we're putting an end to it right now.
Right now, stop me.
Stop.
Yeah, it's the Eric Martin, and that's it.
That's it. I mean, he does look a lot like me. I mean, he's almost as tall, not quite as jacked. I get it.
Almost as good looking.
Almost.
Yeah. I was waiting for you to say that one.
Yeah.
Well, Eric, before we let you go, tell everyone where they can find you on social media or where they can find you wrestling coming up.
All right. So Instagram, it's Classic Eric Martin. And then Twitter, it's Classic E Martin. I'm very diverse with the names there. I do have upcoming match this weekend, MCW on July 24th. I'm wrestling Diaz. Probably gonna throw the dude around the ring. Not as big as me. I get it. And then I don't know. I got some stuff coming up with Ring of Honor. I got some stuff coming up with IWTV. It's just none of it's really been announced yet, so I don't want to ruin anything. ECWA is coming up. I will be there on, I believe, September 18th. And yeah, man, I just got some cool stuff coming up. Nothing's been announced yet, and I'm excited for it.
Absolutely. Well, we appreciate you jumping on here with us tonight. For everyone else out there, make sure you all are staying safe. Go out, support all these men and women as their promotions are coming back through your town. We need the promotions to start thriving. Again, some of these people have been without for so long. I know even as fans, we've been without for so long. That's why this weekend was so great watching WWE with some fans. I felt like the shows had so much electricity to it. It's great watching those. We've got to support the independent scene because without it, there is no WWE, and that's the truth of it. So make sure you guys do that. Also, if you have not yet, pick up a copy of my book, Independent Road Wrestler's Journey. You want to learn the life story of Facade, Effie, Tyson Dukes, Alex Gracia. This is the book for you. Appreciate all the support everyone's been giving us. Pick that up at Barnes & Nobles. For myself and Tom, thanks everyone for the support and all the subscriptions as we continuously go up every single week. We appreciate y'all and have a good night.